G'day, mate.
Welcome back to another build breakdown, guys. I'm sorry I actually got a bit slack with these and forgot to carry on with them, but we're back now, so we'll carry on. Got nothing but time, so I'll rip into our steering and suspension and whatnot on the comp car. So we'll start at the back, and what I'll do is I'll start in the middle because there's actually quite a bit of work that even goes into the subframe. So we'll start in there and work our way out. So yeah, let's take a look. So we start with a standard R200 subframe, and then everything gets gusseted, braced, and converted to solid bushes and stuff. So the diff bushes are solid, the actual main bushes are solid and risers, so it lifts the subframe up. That just helps with a lot of the steering geometry and stuff like that. And then yeah, all these, so there's a brace that runs between the two toe arm brackets, and then all these other where the arms and stuff get bolted on are all braced and gusseted. These A arms are the main ones to gusset, because I've had it, and I know so many people who get it, where these A arms actually rip off the bottom subframe. So it's pretty important to gusset those, or else yeah, they are highly likely to rip off. And yeah, so all of them get gusseted. And the idea of solid bushes is so nothing moves, especially the diff, and you don't want the subframe. Anything that can move can wear out. So if it's solid, it doesn't wear out. And yeah, moving on. So all our arms, so that is toe arm, camber arm, traction arm, and our lower A arm, and including the actual solid bushes that are on the subframe, are all GK Tech, as well as the drop knuckle itself, all GK Tech. It's a kit you can buy, and I highly recommend it. Really good stuff. So the arms and everything are all obviously adjustable, and they're shaped so for maximum clearance. Silvia's run into problems with clearance between the toe arm and the subframe, and same with the camber arm and the actual chassis of the car, and here can hit. So the GK Tech stuff is all shaped so you get maximum clearance for that stuff. So yeah, that's really good. And then the drop knuckle, that helps with just geometry of all the arms. So when it's down on the ground and flat, all the arms are as close to flat and not on a mad angle upwards or anything like that when you've lowered the car. And that all helps keep traction while drifting. So yeah, really good kit. I highly recommend it. This car is so much faster than my Lorel, and a big part of that is that kit right there. So yeah, good stuff. And then also the drop knuckle has the provision for the twin caliper setup. So we run the standard Nissan 2 pots, and 2 of them. I went to the twin caliper setup on this car simply because the knuckle had the provision for it. And yeah, so we set that up. Now the advantages of that, like, it doesn't give you a better handbrake or anything like that. Like, your handbrake setup comes down to your caliper versus master cylinder setup and all that stuff anyway. So going to the setup isn't going to give you a way better handbrake, but what it does do is it separates the two systems, so you can use both at once if you wanted. I've never had a problem reaching for both, but yeah, there's that there. And also, if one fails, you still have the other. So if you end up with a pipe burst or something like that, then yeah, at least either your foot brake or your handbrake will still work. So yeah, that's good. Then we run the BC Racing ZR Series 3-way adjustable suspension. So you can see there, it's still got your standard height adjustment, the spring seat adjustment, stuff like that, and your damper adjustment, but then it has the extra canister for adjusting your high speed and low speed compression. I'm not even sure what half that means, but it's there, and if I want to adjust it and tootle with it, I can. So yeah, a lot of this stuff in this car we went over the top, because I'm not a huge believer in tootling with the car heaps at the track and stuff like that, but it's there, so at least if I'm not happy with it, I can play with more stuff. A big letdown in my Lorel was always I could only really play with tyre pressures once I was at the track. So this car has a lot more tunability if I want to do it. And then you would have seen we run a spacer on the rear. Ignore the fact it's missing a stud, it's not usually like that. That is purely to get the wheels to fill the guards, purely for form. On the rear we run a 235 street tyre because that is what we were restricted to in Pro Sport. And yeah, in this case it's a high fly. I love the high flies. Super smoky and grippy, but they don't last long. But as long as I'm getting my 2 laps out of them, I'm happy. And then yeah, we run the 18 by 10 or 18 by 10.5 on the rear. So that really is too big for a 235 tyre. I can't run the pressures really low or else they de-bead, and also just your sidewall and stuff is stretched out quite a bit, so not ideal. But that's our rear setup. So I'll move forward now and yeah, check it out. I'll go over this stuff because it is to do with the brakes. So my pedal setup is a Willwood swing type reverse mount cylinder setup. So that means there is 3 cylinders, 1 for the clutch and 2 for the brakes. That is, front and rear have their own cylinder, and then same with the reservoirs up there, all on separate systems. So if one fails again, you still have the other. Now the pedal does go soft if one of the systems fails. I've found that out before, but you still have brakes to an extent. You don't lose them completely, which is good. And then obviously with that setup we don't run a booster, so that is why you have the 2 cylinders for front and back to semi-compensate for that. And then yeah, the whole reason we went to that setup was actually in the Lorel, we didn't have room for a booster in the engine bay, so we had to get rid of that setup and go with this setup. And now the advantages of this is, well, you're not running a booster. It does make the pedal extremely hard, so you've got to do a few leg days to get the car to actually stop. In my opinion, it creates a better feel for left foot braking because it's not, you can sort of, yeah, feel it out a bit better. So yeah, that's a big advantage there. It also brings everything out of the engine bay, away from the heat and into the car, so you don't end up with boiling brake fluid or anything like that from header exhaust heat or anything like that. So yeah, that's what controls the brakes. We'll go have a look at the front. Up front we've got standard Nissan 4-pot brakes and rotors, and then I'll start with the shocks again. So we've got BC Racing 3-way adjustable ZR series in the front as well, which involves height adjustment, spring adjustment, and then your damper is actually on the bottom of the shock, and you got the extra canister for high speed and low speed compression. I'm not one for tutuing with the front. I'm more likely to tutu with the back than front setups, but I should probably get into that stuff and look into it one day. And then after that is more GK Tech goodies. So we run again their front kit, which involves a drop knuckle and a 1-piece lower arm. So, and also an offset strut top for bringing the top of the shock out and forward. So again, really good kit. I used to run the just cut and shut stuff before this, and well, you can get a good lock and stuff like that out of the cut and shut stuff, and this kit by no means is like a 90-degree Wisefab kit, but the drivability the kit provides is so much better than a cut and shut kit. You can actually drive on full lock basically without it just tipping out on full lock or falling onto full lock all the time or binding and stuff like that. Like, it's really drivable. So I actually love this front kit. It ever since I've run it in the Lorel and stuff, it was the same kit. It was 4 and S14 in the Lorel, so it never was as good as it should have been, but in this car it works really good. I love how this car steers. So yeah. Also, the 1-piece arm actually has adjustment on it, so you can still adjust your caster as well as your camber and stuff in the lower arm. They do provide a kit that, or a different offset strut top now, that you can do a lot of the adjustment in the top hat rather than the lower, but I've kept it. I can't actually run that because of my adjustable suspension and this extra canister. I basically had to modify this top for this, so yeah, I could, if I wanted to disconnect the canister, run a different one, but I don't want to disconnect the canister, so we'll stick with that one for now. And then also with the steering, the bottom subframe, the rack has been relocated. So that is actually the original rack out of my Laurel, and we simply put it in this car because it already had the rack relocated forward. And then yeah, along with that comes the tie rods and rack ends and stuff. So I think this side is the GK Tech rack end because it has heaps more thread here for adjustment and stuff like that. But I found out I can just run an A32 rack end as well. So yeah. It also has the drop style tie rod to help keep everything, again, it's all to help the drop knuckle, that tie rod and stuff. It's just to help keep the geometry of everything. Same with the rack moving forward. The geometry of everything as close to standard and straight when you're out on full lock and stuff like that, and when the car's lowered. So yeah, really good kit. I love it up front. It steers really good. Okay, so you will have noticed that I also have custom brake lines everywhere on the car, front and back. Now, they are really easy to make. Like if you know how to throw together an oil line with all the dash fittings and stuff like that, you'll know how to throw brake lines together. So really easy, and that way you can customize them to whatever length you want and put them wherever you want, which is what we've done in this car. So yeah, then we take a look at the tyre. We run a 235 semi-slick on the front. I think this one's a Kenda, on an 18x10 wheel again. So I have heard people say you shouldn't run a really wide wheel on the front, but I haven't noticed anything wrong with doing it. So yeah, we don't run a spacer because we don't have clearance issues or trouble filling the guards with the setup. So yeah, that would be the only reason I run a spacer on the front. And yeah, I'll show you what you should brace in the front. Okay, so your caster brackets should be gusseted and have a brace that runs between them, that bar there that you can see, because they are renowned for flexing, splitting, bending, whatever, and they do it all the time, and it only takes not much of a hit and your caster is way out. So yeah, even flexing and stuff, if these move around a bit, your caster's constantly changing. So you want to strengthen them up and make them pretty solid so that to eliminate any of that. Well, hopefully that covers most of my steering, suspension, all that stuff for you guys. If you have any questions about that or any of the breakdown of this car, please feel free to drop a comment and I'll try to answer it. And yeah, otherwise next I'm probably going to touch on the exterior, interior, and a lot of the styling cues of this car. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. Cheers for watching, guys.